you through the webinar.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Hissa, for taking us through the agenda of today. Let's start with the introduction. As you may know, this session is designed to walk you through the corporate tax return requirements of the taxable person through EmiraTax portal. A tax return must be submitted by a taxable person or another person who has the right to do so on behalf of the taxable person, where this includes a tax agent or a legal representative, and also the parent company of the tax group. A tax return comprises of 9 main steps or parts, where it allows a taxable person to report their taxable income, including any relevant adjustments, such as the exemptions and reliefs claimed that we will walk you through in a few minutes. We hope that you can hear us clearly now. Moving to the question and answer session, as mentioned by Hissa, there will be a question and answer session at the end of the webinar to answer any questions related and limited to corporate tax return. We would like to highlight on an important note that the Ministry of Finance and the Federal Tax Authority launched the initiative to waive your late registration penalties under the corporate tax law. Kindly note that this will be applicable to corporate taxpayers and certain exempt persons required to register with the Federal Tax Authority, whereby this you will need to submit the tax return or annual declaration within 7 months from the end of the first tax period, where it will be automatically reversed or refunded and no pre-application needed. However, you will need to meet the conditions of completing your return within 7 months. As well, full compliance with the provisions of the corporate tax law. Moving to the key points that we would like to highlight as well, where we would like you to take it into consideration before filing your corporate tax return. Starting with the taxpayer details in step 1, kindly do not file your return in if the following is incorrect, either your entity type or tax period, where, for example, for the entity type, where you are registered as a natural person instead of a juridical person, you will need to apply an EmiraTax first to change your entity type and tax period if needed, and only file your return once the FTA has updated the entity type or tax period. Moving to the small business relief. Kindly note, if a taxpayer with revenue equal to or less than 3 million dirhams qualify to claim small business relief, the corporate tax return is simplified, where the small business relief is elected. No corporate tax is payable as well, where small business relief is elected. You do not need to attach your financial statements, but must be able to prove your revenue when requested by the FTA. So kindly refer back to the corporate tax guide on small business relief for more details and guidance. Moving to the elections. There are certain elections that are irrevocable. Please pay careful considering to the current and future tax consequences of each election before you make a decision, where the irrevocable elections are realization basis, transactional rules, transfers within a qualifying group. Moving to the financial statements and accounting methods, Kindly note that taxpayers, excluding the Small Business Relief, need to attach their financial statements to the corporate tax return with revenue of not more than 3 million dirhams in a tax period. They can use their cash basis of accounting, where the revenue more than 3 million dirhams in the tax period, they will be required to prepare financial statements in terms of the IFRS or IFRS for SMEs if applicable, where the financial statements must be signed and stamped and attached to the tax return. Kindly make sure before submitting it that your financial statements is signed and stamped. Taxpayers also need to consider whether they should engage an accountant with appropriate experience to assist them with the preparation of the financial statements. Moving to the nil returns, if you earned no revenue during the tax period, you can elect for the small business relief. Please pay attention to this section as we receive common questions about it, where if you earned no revenue during the tax period, you can elect for the small business relief, in which case the return should be simplified to you. If you do not elect for the small business relief, you will need to complete the normal corporate tax return, where amounts are nil. You need to populate the nil and relevant fields. Moving to the last section, which will be the free zone. Not all free zone companies will be qualifying free zone persons, so kindly note for qualifying free zone persons who are taxed at a rate of 0% on their qualifying income only, please refer to the corporate tax law, the corporate tax guide on the free zone persons, and the ministerial in addition to the cabinet decision for more information. Also, qualifying free zone persons may elect to subject to the normal corporate tax regime. With this, and after highlighting the most important sections, we will start the demo to uh, of how to apply for the corporate tax return. You will start first by entering your credentials, such as the email address and the password showing and the security code showing on your screens. You will move by selecting the taxable person from the list and click view to open your dashboard. Once you open your dashboard, you will click on view all to view the filing details of your corporate tax filings. You will go to actions and you will click on file to start filing your corporate tax return for the selected period. Kindly make sure that the selected period is accurate before applying for the return. You will read the terms and conditions, and after ticking the checkbox, you will confirm that you have read the above instructions and guidelines, and you will start the return process. So first of all, you will have 8 main steps where it comprises of the taxpayer details, moving to the elections, accounting schedules, accounting adjustment and exempt income, reliefs, other adjustment, tax liability and tax credits, and finally reviewing and declaring all the information. In case if you entered your taxpayer's details as a qualifying free zone person, you will have one more step considered for the free zones persons. So in this demo, we will assume that we are a free zone persons to cover all these steps. You will have the first section displays as the filing period details based on the selected corporate tax return, where it will be there on your screen for all steps to make sure that your corporate tax return period is correct, the corporate tax return due date is correct, and the corporate tax year end is correct. Starting with the corporate tax details, starting with the taxpayer details will be pre-populated with your details from your registration application. And kindly make sure that it's important to select the correct legal type during your return filing. If you realize that the legal type is incorrect, you will need to go and change your entity type by amending it first and changing it. Once it's approved and reviewed by the FTA, you will apply for your corporate tax return. You will add your address details. You will review your address details where needed, and you will move by selecting yes if your information is correct, and if the information is incorrect, as mentioned previously for the tax period and the entity type, you will be promoted to submit an application to amend the registration first. And once the application to amend the registration is submitted and approved, you can proceed with completing the corporate tax return. So kindly pay attention for this section where you will need to double check and review your entity type and corporate tax period. Moving to the taxable person information, where you can update the taxable person information, and moving to update the unincorporated partnership details if required. You can update the business activities details as well. And moving to the most important step in this section, which is the free zones, you can complete the free zone details. Please complete it carefully in which you will proceed as a qualifying free zone person. So filing a return is mandatory regardless of the revenue amount of profit or loss status, where this will apply for all registered taxpayers. So please make sure before answering the questions if you are a qualifying free zone person or not. Once answered the questions carefully, you will click on next step. In this section, as you may see, that the steps has been increased to 9 sections because we clicked on the free zone answer that we are a qualifying free zone person. So if you're not a qualifying free zone person, this section will not appear to you, where you will have a different section in completing the steps in an easier way. So starting with the revenue schedule details, where you will update it if applicable to you. You will move to completing the update of the revenue schedule, where the total revenue for de minimis requirements should be auto-calculated to you. You can update the non-qualifying revenue, and as well the total non-qualifying revenue should be auto-calculated to you. You cannot update the de minimis calculation details. You can just review it, and you can update the qualifying revenue details if applicable. Moving to updating the substance free zones details if applicable as well. And finally, you can update the free zone conditions details where applicable. You can update the additional information as well by entering the information for each emirate, and you will have the additional information as an optional to add. Once completed carefully, you will click on next step, and you will move to the elections step, which should be the second step of the corporate tax return, where the election section allow you to make the elections relevant to you. Kindly note that in this page there are some irrevocable elections that must be done in the first tax return, and taxpayer will not be able to change it in the future returns. So you should be ensured that you understand the future consequences of each election. So please answer the questions for elections carefully. Let's start with the realization basis, where you can make the election to apply for the realization basis. And it is important to know that your financial statement must be signed and stamped in this section as well. You will move to apply to elect for the transactional rules if applicable, and you will have the small business relief, where you can make the election to apply for the small business relief, where you are entitled for this relief if your revenue is 3 million dirhams or less. If you are entitled for this, you should answer the question either with yes or no of is the taxable person a member of a multinational enterprises group. So please be careful before answering any question. Moving to the transfers within a qualifying group, where you can elect in this section for the same. You will move to the business restructuring relief, where you can make an election for it, and for the foreign permanent establishment income. So after answering all the questions carefully, you will click on next step and you will proceed to the fourth step of the accounting schedule. Kindly note that this section is divided to you into three main parts, where the statement of profit or loss, which will be the first part, comprehensive income and statement of financial positions will be second part, and you can update the details of each of these if applicable. Important note to know in this section that all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will determine where positive or negative adjustment will be applied in the tax calculation depending on the nature of the field. So let's start first with the gross profit or loss, where you will need to enter your operating revenue details, and the gross loss or profit should be auto-calculated to you. You can update the entrance expense income details if applicable, where the net interest expense or income should be auto-calculated to you. You can update as well the loss gains on disposable of assets details in this section, and the net losses or gains on disposable assets should be auto-calculated to you, where you can review it. Moving to the net losses, gains, and foreign exchange, you can update it in this section, and it should be auto-calculated for you for the net losses and gains on foreign exchanges. You will move by updating the expense of other income details if applicable, where the expense net of other income should be auto-calculated to you. You may view the net profit or loss, where it will be auto-calculated based on all the details and numeric values entered by you under the profit or loss section. You can update the statement of other comprehensive income details in this highlighted green box section if applicable to you, and you will move by reviewing the total comprehensive income for the year, which will be grey out and auto-calculated to you as well. You can update the assets details if applicable, and you will move by updating the non-current assets details, where the total non-current assets and total assets should be auto-calculated to you. You can update the liability details as well, and the total liability should be auto-calculated to you. You can update the total equity details if applicable as well, and the total equity will be auto-calculated to you in dirhams. The total equity and liabilities are auto-calculated in this section based on the details entered above. You can enter the total number of employees in this section, and you will proceed by reviewing the and updating the audit details if applicable in this section, and you may click on add shareholders to add shareholders details where applicable to you. With this, you will make sure and review all steps that you completed it in this section, and you will move to the next step, which should be the accounting adjustment and exempt income, where this section will allow you to update the accounting income for adjustments such as the provisions adjustments and realization basis adjustments, where you can update the exempt income section by providing your details of all income to be adjusted in the accounting income. You will enter your accounting income details first by entering the required fields and answering the questions carefully. You will move by continuing with updating the accounting income details if applicable. You will move by updating as well the details of the accounting income where applicable and answering the questions carefully. You will have the realization basis adjustment section here where you can update it if applicable to you, and you will continue by updating the realization basis adjustment where applicable. You will move to the transactional adjustments where you need to answer the questions carefully in this section, and you will continue by updating the transactional adjustment details where applicable. You can update in this green highlighted box section the exempt income details, and you will continue with updating the exempt income details if applicable to you. You can update the foreign permanent establishment income details if applicable as well, and you will review all the required fields carefully before proceeding to the reliefs section. So in the relief section, we would like to highlight that it will include the adjustment which are arising from reliefs claimed, including transfers within a qualifying group or business restructuring relief where applicable. And as mentioned in the previous steps, all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will determine where positive or negative adjustment is needed. You will start first by updating the details of the relief relating to transfers within qualifying group by answering the questions, followed up with updating the details of the relief relating to the transfers within a qualifying group. You can update in this section the details of the relief if the business restructuring relief if applicable, and you will continue by updating the same for the relief related to the business restructuring relief. You will move by reviewing all the added information, and you will proceed to the next step, which should be the seventh step of the other adjustment, where it will allow you to make the adjustment for non-deductible expenditure, adjustment for interest income or expenditure, transactions with related parties and connected persons if applicable, adjustment derived from a qualifying investment fund, and any other adjustments not covered yet. So as mentioned, all numeric values should be entered as positive, where the system will determine where positive or negative needed. You will enter first your details of the adjustments for non-deductible expenditure where applicable, and next you will add the description for the same. You will move by entering the adjustments for interest income or expenditure if applicable, and if yes, you will click on interest capping schedule, where it will take you to this page where you will need to enter the interest capping schedule details, where you will find the non-deductible net interest expenditure brought forward, gray out and auto calculated for your review. You will have the chance either to cancel and go back or save and go back. Once you go back, you will have the adjustment for interest income expenditure details if applicable to you, and you will move to the transactions with related parties and connected persons if applicable. You will answer the questions either yes or no, and depending on your answer, you will click on the related party transaction schedule, where it will take you to this page where you will have to click on add new item to add the gross income received from the related parties, and you will enter the gross income received in this section. After reviewing it, you will click on add and you will go to the main page where you can view the details you have entered here. You will move to the expenditure paid to related parties, and by clicking on add a new item you will add the required fields related to the expenditure paid to related parties, and after reviewing it you will click on add and you can view the details in this section where you have entered, and you may click on the summary table to review the section. You cannot make any amendments to this section in the summary table. You can review it only and either cancel and go back or save and go back. So let's assume we saved and go back to the main step where we will complete to the additions as a result of adjustment to the transactions which were not at arm's length, where this section should be auto-calculated to you for your review. You may click on the blue box where it says connected person schedule to add a new item for the connected person schedule. You will enter the connected person schedule details by completing all the required fields in this section, and you can view the details that you have entered here without amending it. You will click save and go back and you will proceed to the next step. The transactions within related parties and connected persons details you will enter it if applicable to you. You will have the section for the adjustments for income and expenditure derived from a qualifying investment fund. You will answer it if applicable to you, and you will move to the other adjustments if applicable. Once done, you will review all the provided information and you will proceed to the next step. Next step should be the 8th step of the tax liability and tax credit section, where it will display your final tax liability for your review. You will start first with the taxable income details, which should be auto-calculated to you as a result of the schedule and gray out. You will move to the tax losses, where you can update the tax losses details if applicable by entering the tax losses schedule and clicking on the blue box, where it will take you to this section where you cannot make any amendments to the gray out fields in this section, but you will go to the next page where it says tax losses claimed from other taxable persons, and you will click on add new item to add the required fields. You will enter the tax losses claimed from other taxable persons details where applicable to you, and you will move to this section where you can view the details you have entered only and review it before saving and go back. You will have the section for the tax losses transferred to other taxable persons, where you may click on add new item as well to add the tax losses transferred to other taxable persons. You will complete the required fields and you will click on add, then go to the main step by clicking on save and go back. You will have the tax losses details which should be pre-populated and gray out to you based on the information provided. You will have the tax calculation and tax credit section which should be auto-calculated as a result of the scheduled provided. You will click on the blue box under the tax calculations and tax credit. You will click on tax credit schedule by clicking on add new item and completing all the required fields such as the taxable income of the foreign country and all the required fields. You will move by reviewing the details entered by you here in this section, and you will click on save and go back. You will have this section where it will show the tax calculation and tax credits, which should be auto-calculated as well for your review. You will move by updating the estimated or provisional figures included in the corporate tax return by answering the question either with yes or no and completing the required fields. You will move to the additional attachments where you will need to add and upload your additional attachments where required. You will move after completing all the mandatory fields by clicking on the by moving to the next step of reviewing and declaring all information, and you will click on the checkbox after carefully reviewing all the information entered on the corporate tax return. You will answer the question by clicking on yes, and your corporate tax return has been submitted successfully to the FTA, where a reference number should be generated to you, and you may use it for future communication with the FTA. You can go back and check the status of the corporate tax return based on the application number once the corporate tax return has been submitted in this dashboard. With this, we've completed the corporate tax return and we will move to the payment process demonstration. Let's assume we've entered from the beginning to the Emira portal and you entered the profile you would like to proceed with. You will click on corporate tax where it shows corporate tax in the first step. Second step, you will click on my payments. You will click select and pay on the total corporate tax payment due tile, where you will have the outstanding amount and the total tax liabilities. You can find your returns liabilities here, where you may view the liability type, the period description, the payment due date, and the original liability with the outstanding liability. You may add the amount to be paid, either the full amount or part of the amount. You will proceed by clicking on proceed to payment, and you will have two methods of payment, either GIBAN or card payment. You may choose the preferred payment method. You will click on yes to confirm, and you will enter your payment details in this section, where after entering on pay, you may download a PDF copy of the acknowledgement screen and click back to the dashboard to check the taxable person total corporate tax payments due. So in this section, you will have the total outstanding amount and the overdue amount that you've paid. With this, we've reached to the key takeaways of today's session. As you may know, starting with the registration, taxpayers must ensure that they are registered for corporate tax and should update, if required, your entity type and other required data to ensure it's correct within the tax period. You will need as well to check and make sure that your tax period, specifically the first period appearing in the registration information, is correct. Kindly note for the financial statement and accounting methods, where we received common questions for this section. Please be careful that the taxpayers need to prepare and upload their financial statements along with the corporate tax return if the taxpayer with revenue of more than 3 million dirhams in the tax period. They will be required to prepare their account as per the IFRS or IFRS for SMEs if applicable, where qualifying free zone persons and taxpayers with a revenue of more than 50 million dirhams in a tax period need to get their financial statements audited. You need to consider as well if you need to engage an accountant with an appropriate experience. Moving to the auditors, and when do you need to engage an auditors? Taxpayer which needs to engage in auditors should do so before the year end to ensure that the auditors are appropriately involved in the year-end activities such as and including but not limited to stock take and cash count. We're moving to the record keeping. What information do you need to keep? Taxpayers need to make sure that they have necessary records and information to support the corporate tax return and any applications or elections they would like to make. These records must be retained as per the requirement of the corporate tax law. Moving to the small business relief, and when are you eligible to elect for the small business relief, or am I eligible to elect for the small business relief? Taxpayers with revenue of not more than 3 million dirhams should consider if they are eligible for small business relief election and determine if they wish to claim the relief. However, for the other elections, and if you are eligible for other elections, you need to check whether you are eligible to make other elections as part of your return filing, where this should include the elections to record gains and losses on a realization basis, exclude income from foreign permanent establishment when determining taxable income, apply for the transactional rules, apply business restructuring relief, apply transfer within a qualifying group relief, or be subject to tax at the standard rates instead of the rates applicable to a qualifying free zone person. Moving to the tax residency status, and if you are a resident in the UAE, taxpayers need to understand that their tax resident status and consider the impact of any applicable double taxation treaties on their resident status, where this is relevant for completing the corporate tax return. Moving to the exemptions, and am I eligible to file an application to be an exempt person? Certain exempt persons will be required to file an application with the FTA within 60 days of the end of the tax period. Where the additional support, and when do you need an additional support? Taxpayers need to consider whether they need an additional specialist support, as an example from a tax agent or specialist to help with preparing the corporate tax return, or requesting a clarification, or any other activities. Moving to the auditors. Audited financial statements are required if you have revenue that exceeds of 50 million dirhams in the relevant tax period, or you are a qualifying free zone person. The auditor must be a registered auditor. Moving to the related parties and connected persons, the same person can be a related party and a connected person. So if this is the case, you need to answer the question and the section with yes to both questions, whether you had any transactions with related parties or connected persons. However, you will only need to complete the details of the transaction under one of these categories, not under both of them, where all transactions with related parties and connected persons must be at arm's length. If this is not the case, the taxable person needs to make adjustments in its return to reflect the arm's length amount. Where the record keeping, for the taxpayers who need to ensure that they have all the necessary records and information to support their corporate tax return, this record must be retained for a period of 7 years from the end of the tax period. Where the income earned outside the UAE, if you are a tax resident of the UAE, you need to include your worldwide income in your return, not only the income from UAE sources. And we need to highlight this last step before we proceed to the Q&A session. The conditions to benefit from the initiatives of the Ministry of Finance and Federal Tax Authority, which was launched yesterday. This initiative is important to waive the late registration penalties under the corporate tax law, where it will be applicable to corporate taxpayers and certain exempt persons required to register with the Federal Tax Authority. You will need to submit the tax return or annual declaration within 7 months from the end of the first tax period. You may benefit from this initiative if you complete your corporate tax return, where full compliance with the provisions of the corporate tax law. With this, and before proceeding to the Q&A session, I hand over back to my colleague Hissa Al-Banna.